Some families pass down heirlooms. Mine passed down entitlement, wrapped in holiday small talk, seasonal gossip, and the unspoken rule that if you weren't the center of attention, you were furniture. And I was always furniture. My name is Tamar Willis, and I'm 31. I'm the oldest of three, the default scapegoat, the reliable one, the person everyone forgets is even in the room until they need something fixed, funded, or quietly absorbed. Growing up, speaking up meant I was starting drama. Staying quiet meant I was being moody. Either way, I was wrong. I learned early that in our house, silence was safer, but it came with a cost. You disappear if you stay quiet long enough. My younger brother Mason never disappeared. Mason was the golden child, the son everything else revolved around. If he spilled red wine on the carpet, blamed it on the ghost of Aunt Patty, Mom would apologize for not buying darker rugs. I once forgot to RSVP to a brunch and got a voicemail from my mother that sounded like a court summons. Mason's life was curated like a lifestyle showroom. Even his mistakes were aesthetic. He was a content creator, meaning he filmed himself doing normal things and sold them as personal growth. Avocado toast on marble countertops, morning manifestation walks, linen outfits, and captions about healing. Meanwhile, I fixed broken HVAC units. I laid tile. I crawled under houses with a flashlight clenched between my teeth because someone's heat went out at midnight. Real work. Quiet work. The kind you don't post about. I was never ashamed of it, but I was tired of what it meant inside my family. Because in our family, Mason's dreams were called potential. Mine were called practical. Mason's needs were important. Mine were handled. So I stopped asking. I worked. I saved. I skipped the spontaneous trips they bragged about every holiday. The retreats, the concerts, the weekends away. I sacrificed all of it for one thing I wanted that was just for me. A beach house. Not a mansion. Not a glass palace on a cliff. Just a quiet two-bedroom fixer-upper with weathered shutters and an honest view of the water. The kind of place where you can drink coffee and actually hear the waves. The kind of place that doesn't care who you are online. It took me 6 years, 3 jobs, 1 failed engagement. That engagement still stung if I thought about it too long. My ex used to call me steady, like it was a compliment. Later I realized he meant predictable. He wanted someone who would orbit his plans, not someone building her own. The beach house was my proof that I didn't need permission to have something beautiful. When I finally signed the papers, there was no party, no family dinner, no congratulations speech where Mason somehow made it about himself. It was just me, a cheap bottle of champagne, and my dog Benson, who celebrated by peeing on the welcome mat like it was a sacred ceremony. And I laughed, a real laugh, the kind that comes from your chest, because it was mine, truly mine, not shared, not borrowed, not approved by anyone else. I thought the silence would last. But nothing attracts family like success they didn't contribute to. It started with a Facebook post, one photo, me standing on the porch, sunset behind me, Benson at my feet like a tiny guard dog. Caption, built something I don't have to explain. The comments came fast. Mason, stunning view. Can't wait to visit, Mom. Wow, didn't know you were house shopping. Is this near the cove Mason likes? Dad, no comment. Just a thumbs up emoji, like he was approving paperwork. I didn't reply. In normal families, you don't have to. People call. They ask questions. They say congratulations without resentment in their voice. I didn't think I had to explain anything until 2 weeks later. My cousin Trent called me out of the blue, voice buzzing with excitement. Yo, congrats on the house, he said. Mason's wedding is going to look insane with that view. My fork froze halfway to my mouth. What? He laughed, like I was joking. Don't play. The invites are sick. Seafoam paper. Your address and everything. My address. I stared at the wall, suddenly aware of Benson chewing his toy at my feet, blissfully unaware that my reality had just cracked open. Trent, I said slowly, what do you mean my address? Your beach house, he said. Honestly, super generous of you. Didn't know you and Mason were close again. Close again. We had never been close. The last message I'd gotten from Mason was 5 months ago. A group text asking me to like and share his new wellness campaign. I hadn't heard from him since. And now I was apparently hosting his wedding. Without being asked. Without being told. I didn't scream. That's what surprises people when they hear this part. They expect rage. Fireworks. A meltdown. But when you've spent your whole life swallowing disappointment, anger doesn't always explode. Sometimes it crystallizes. I sat there, blinking at my pasta, listening to the ocean outside like the universe already knew where this was headed. Then I opened Mason's Instagram, and there it was. A reel posted 3 days earlier. Soft focus, linen tones, a slow pan across a porch I recognized down to the crooked plank I'd planned to sand next weekend. Caption: so excited to announce we're tying the knot at the perfect little beach house, family owned, filled with memories. Totally sacred how our beach wedding energy. In the background, my porch. He'd filmed on my property, probably while I was at work. No call, no text, no, hey Tamar, can we talk? Just a wedding announcement, an entitlement dressed in filters and hashtags. I stared at the screen until it went dark and reflected my face back at me. Not angry, not shocked. Clear, because something inside me finally clicked. I could have called him. I could have demanded an apology. I could have exploded and been labeled difficult, like always. That's what they expected. They expected me emotional, reactive, easy to dismiss. So instead, I did the thing I've always done when my family tried to rewrite reality. I got practical. I opened a new tab, typed, short-term rental contracts plus beach properties. And I started drafting something Mason would actually have to read. That night I didn't sleep. Not because I was furious, not even because I was shocked. I was awake because clarity has a way of keeping you alert. When you grow up as the spare, you get used to watching your wins get rebranded as someone else's stepping stone. When I fixed Mom's car at 17, she thanked Mason's girlfriend for holding the flashlight. When I got my certification, Dad said, "At least you'll always have a job." But this was a full wedding, a destination event, on property that legally belonged to me. Promoted online, sent to 150 guests. And somehow, not one person asked if I was okay with it. Later that night, Trent forwarded me the guest list. The file name said everything. Beach Wedding, 2025, Final FR. Mason's fiancée, Brianna, was listed as Creative Director of Spiritual Marketing. The guest list included influencers, Bali friends, someone named Glow by Chaz, and a section labeled Family Table, TBD. Under it, Tamar not invited. My house, my address, my porch. And I wasn't even invited. I didn't cry. I think that part of me burned out years ago. The next morning, I drove to the beach house with Benson riding shotgun, tongue out the window like it was any other day. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. Salt air, fresh paint, sunlight spilling across the floor. I stood in the middle of the living room, my sanctuary, and let it all settle. The betrayal, the audacity, the assumption I would stay quiet. I exhaled. "I don't need revenge," I whispered. Benson sneezed. "I need a receipt." So I called the local property manager I'd spoken to months earlier. She answered on the second ring. "Tamar, how's the house?" I looked at my porch, the one Mason had already claimed as family-owned. "It's ready," I said calmly, "and I'm open to a one-time weekend rental, last minute." She brightened. "What's the occasion?" I smiled, slow and steady. "Let's call it," I said, "family realignment." And just like that, the story shifted. Because while my family was busy planning a wedding on my property, I was about to remind them what ownership actually means. I didn't tell anyone. Not Mason, not my parents, not the cousins who were already arguing in the group chat about seafoam versus sage napkins. I didn't need to. By Thursday afternoon, the rental was locked in. A couple from Ohio, Mike and Susan, celebrating their 25th anniversary. Quiet, polite, paid in full. No influencers. No barefoot chakra healers. No ring lights. A real contract, real money, real consequences. I added one extra clause before signing. Property not to be entered or used by any unauthorized persons. Violation constitutes trespassing. No exceptions. I printed the contract, framed it, hung it in the foyer, right where Mason loved to film those slow-motion, intention-setting walks through my house. The best part? I still didn't say a word. I didn't call Mason to warn him, didn't message my mom to clear the air, didn't post a cryptic story or passive-aggressive quote. I just waited. Setup day came fast. That morning, I was 2 hours inland, visiting a friend and helping her move a busted couch. My phone stayed face down on the counter while I wrestled furniture and tried not to think about what was happening at the beach. For a while, there was nothing. No messages, no explosions, no dramatic awakenings. Just quiet. Then, ping. Mom, 12:03 p.m. Hi, honey. Quick question. Did you rent out the beach house this weekend? I stared at the screen. No. How are you? No. We need to talk. Just that familiar tone. Half denial, half panic. the sound of someone realizing they may have forgotten a crucial detail. I didn't reply. 5 minutes later, my phone lit up like a slot machine. Dad, 12:07 p.m. What the hell is going on, Tamar? Brianna, 12:09 p.m. Hey girl, seems like there's been a mix-up with the venue. Are you home? Mason, 12:10 p.m. Tamar, we need to talk now. Then came the photo from Trent. It showed Mike and Susan standing on my porch, each holding a glass of wine. Between them was a handwritten chalkboard sign. Happy 25 years, Mike and Susan. Beneath it, taped neatly to the railing. No trespassing, no exceptions. I could practically hear the record scratch from 2 hours away. By the time I drove back toward the coast that evening, my phone looked like it had survived a natural disaster. Voicemails, missed calls, Instagram DMs from people I hadn't spoken to since high school. What's happening at your house? Is the wedding still on? Girl, this is wild. Turns out Mason and Brianna had posted a full wedding prep vlog the night before, complete with Pinterest mood boards, sunset shots, and the hashtag, "And Mason and Bree by the sea." They tagged the location. They hyped setup day. So when vans pulled up that morning with folding chairs, eucalyptus garlands, and oat milk lattes, the guests were greeted by a smiling older couple in matching windbreakers. Mike later told me that when the first wedding planner stepped onto the porch and asked where to unload the decor, he blinked, pointed at the sign, and said, "If you're not here for the anniversary, you're on the wrong beach." God bless Mike. Apparently chaos followed. Brianna cried. The planner panicked. Mason yelled about miscommunication. Susan just refilled her wine. By the time I finally got back to town, the sun was setting, painting the sky that soft orange Mason loved to filter. I stopped at my favorite beach cafe for dinner, still in work boots, drywall dust on my jeans, exhausted in the best way. And there they were. Mason, red-faced, arms crossed so tightly it looked painful. Brianna beside him, sipping something with a tiny umbrella like she was still trying to manifest calm. Mason spotted me instantly. "Tamar," he said, standing up like he was about to give a press conference. "We need to talk." I looked at him, then at Brianna, then at the bartender behind the counter who gave me a look that said, "Do you want popcorn or backup?" "I didn't realize your most important weekend depended on a house you don't own," I said lightly, picking up a menu. Mason blinked. "It's our family house." "Our?" I raised an eyebrow. "Pretty sure I paid the mortgage. You ever scraped paint off baseboards at midnight? Rewired the second floor? Unless the universe Venmo'd contractors, I don't think so." Brianna leaned in, voice soft but sharp. "You should have told us. You blindsided everyone." I met her eyes. Putting my address on 150 wedding invitations without asking is what blindsiding looks like. Mason scoffed. "You didn't have to go nuclear." "Nuclear?" I smiled. "I rented my property, legally." He ran a hand through his hair. "You embarrassed us." I tilted my head. "You left me off the guest list." Silence. For the first time since I'd walked in, Mason didn't have a response ready. Brianna finally spoke, quieter now. "Do you really hate us that much?" That question landed heavier than I expected. Because no, I didn't hate them. "I don't hate anyone," I said softly. "I just stopped offering myself as a doormat." I stood. "If you wanted the house, you could have asked. If you wanted a relationship, you could have built one. But all you wanted was a backdrop for your Instagram wedding." Mason's jaw tightened. I didn't wait for a reply. I walked out without ordering. That night, I sat on the porch with Benson. He leaned into my leg, ears twitching, watching the stars like they owed him answers. I wasn't angry. I wasn't smug. I was peaceful. Because for once I hadn't caved. I didn't fold under guilt. I didn't apologize for having boundaries. I protected what was mine, not out of spite, but out of respect for myself. The next morning I got an email. Subject: "Thank you for letting us celebrate love the right way." It was from Mike and Susan. Attached was a photo of them under string lights on my back deck, laughing, holding hands. No filters, no hashtags, just joy. And for the first time in years, the house really felt like home. The silence lasted exactly 36 hours. Then my mom went digital. Family group chat. Fam jam. "Mom, I think we can all agree this was one big misunderstanding." "Mom, let's clear the air and move forward in love." Mason. Not sure how love fits into public humiliation, but okay. I watched the messages roll in like a passive-aggressive sitcom. No punchlines, just emojis and tension. I didn't respond. Not to the chat. Not to the follow-up texts. Not even when my dad left a voicemail that started with, "Tamar, I know things got out of hand," and ended with, "But you have to admit, this was kind of extreme." Extreme. Renting my own house was extreme. Hijacking someone's property, planning a 150-person wedding, excluding the owner, and calling it family, that was just tradition. I played the voicemail on speaker while Benson chewed his squeaky lobster toy like it owed him money. Even he looked unimpressed. Over the next week, I threw myself into projects. Replaced the back fence, painted the guest room, installed motion lights near the steps. There's something about reclaiming your space that makes you want to reinforce every boundary, physically and emotionally. And just when I thought the storm had passed, I got a card in the mail. Glossy white, gold foil lettering. What family means. Inside in Mason's neat handwriting. Families don't always get it right, but they always come back together. I forgive you for how things went down. Let's not let a house come between us. I read it 3 times. Not once did he acknowledge what he'd done. He forgave me. I laughed. A real laugh, because at that moment, something inside me fully let go. I wasn't waiting for their apology anymore. I was building something better. And I wasn't done yet. I showed the card to my friend Lena over dinner that night. She read it once, then again, slower. Then she looked up at me like she was trying to solve a murder. Wait, she said, he forgave you? Yep. For what, existing? Apparently for ruining his wedding, by not donating my house. Lena whistled low. That's Olympic-level gaslighting. He's training for the family manipulation finals. I laughed, genuinely this time. Because once you see it, you can't unsee it. The pattern. The way Mason reframed every boundary I set as a personal attack. That night, for the first time since the circus started, I wrote something. Not a rant, not a confrontation, just a quiet post on my private social media. Sometimes peace doesn't come from fixing things. It comes from knowing you didn't break them. No tags, no names. But word travels in families faster than apologies. By morning, I had 3 messages. From my cousin Ava, thank you for doing what none of us had the guts to do. From my Aunt Elaine, just so you know, some of us are proud of you. And from Mason, wow. No emoji, no punctuation, just wow. I smiled. Because if that was passive to him, he had no idea what calm distance looked like. That same week, I signed a seasonal agreement with the property manager. Every other weekend, spring through fall. Good rates, good renters, 0 assumptions. I posted the announcement a few days later. Excited to share the beach house will be available for weekend stays this season. DM for details. It wasn't petty. It was factual. Mason didn't respond. Mom did. Mom, so we're really not allowed to use the house now? For the first time in my life, I didn't feel guilt replying. Me. Correct. I stared at the message after I sent it, waiting for the familiar wave of shame. It didn't come. Mason was incredible at apologies in theory. He could say namaste to a barista and sorry to a cactus he bumped into at a yoga retreat. But the word sorry, the real one, had never once been available for me. The golden child didn't apologize. He reframed, he forgave, he centered himself. And that was fine, because I had stopped hoping he'd change. Instead, I focused on changing my life. I knocked down the wall between the kitchen and living room, built floating shelves, installed a stone fire pit outside. The more I invested in the house, the more my extended family suddenly remembered I existed. Uncle Mark called, asking how I installed the deck lights. You always had a knack for that stuff. Aunt Claire dropped off muffins because she was in the area. Even my grandmother, who once forgot my birthday because she was watching Mason's baking livestream, texted, "Proud of you. Grandpa would have loved that house." That one got me. And just when things started to settle, another envelope arrived. Same handwriting, same gold foil. Different message. Mason and Brianna have decided to elope in Bali. Small ceremony. Intimate. No drama. We're healing. You're welcome to come if you want. Healing. The word buzzed with irony. He had hijacked my property, painted me as the villain for saying no, and now he was offering me a healing invitation like he was hosting a retreat. I considered it, not because I wanted to go, but because I wondered what it would feel like to show up without shrinking. To stand there as myself. Not the quiet sister, not the peacekeeper, not the one hovering near the buffet pretending not to notice she didn't belong. Then I checked my calendar. That weekend was booked. A family from Oregon, twin boys, a massive Labrador named Pickles. And for once, I didn't cancel my plans for anyone. I mailed Mason a postcard. Congrats, have fun in Bali. The ocean's pretty nice here too. No sarcasm, no venom, just distance. A few days later, I got a message I didn't expect. Dad, I've been thinking about everything. Can we grab coffee sometime? I didn't reply right away. Not because I wanted to punish him, but because I needed to decide what I was open to. Was I willing to talk? Yes. Was I willing to sit through another round of you know how your brother is? No. 3 days later, I replied, "If you're ready to actually hear me, not just wait your turn to talk, then yes." He didn't text back. Instead, 2 mornings later, there was a knock on my door. I opened it. Dad stood there, holding 2 coffees, one black, one with almond milk and cinnamon. The way I always order it. He didn't start with the joke, didn't say, "Hey, kiddo." He just asked quietly, "Can I come in?" He looked older than I remembered, not in the obvious way, not gray hair or posture, in the way people do when they finally start carrying the weight of what they ignored. He sat on the porch chair like it didn't belong to him, and for the first time, it didn't. This wasn't the house where he barked orders at teenage me for wasting time on little fixes. This was my house, and I think he felt that immediately. We sat in silence. Benson sniffed his shoe, then went back to sleep by my foot. Dad finally spoke. "I've been thinking about the wedding, and the house, and pretty much everything." I nodded, didn't fill the space. "We screwed up," he said. No soft lead-in, no both sides made mistakes. Just, "We screwed up." The words I'd imagined for years, never really believed I'd hear. "I don't think I realized how often we brushed you aside," he continued. "You were always the independent one, quiet, reliable. We thought that meant you didn't need us." That part hurt more than I expected, because I had needed them. Not for money, not for favors, just to be seen. "Why didn't you say no sooner?" he asked. I shrugged, because every time I did, I became the problem. He nodded slowly. "I really didn't think you'd be the one to draw the line." "Neither did anyone," I said. "That's why it worked." We sat for a while longer, no shouting, no big emotional speech. Just understanding, late, imperfect, but real. When he left, he didn't hug me, didn't ask for forgiveness. He just said, "Thanks for letting me in." And for the first time, that was enough. I went inside, opened my laptop, and confirmed another rental request. A family with kids, a golden retriever named Butterscotch. I smiled. Summer rolled on. The house filled with strangers who respected it, people who paid on time, who left notes like, "The ocean sounds healed us." My family stayed quiet. Until one Sunday morning, I got a voicemail from an unknown number. I listened later. It was Mason. "Hey, it's me. I'm back from Bali. I know this is weird, but I'd really appreciate a minute if you can spare one." I opened Instagram. His feed was silent. No reels, no wedding glow, no Bali bliss. 3 days later, he showed up on my porch. No camera, no latte, no performance. Just Mason, hair tied back, eyes tired. "You got a minute?" he asked. I stepped aside. Not warmly, not coldly, neutral. And that's where everything truly changed. Mason stepped inside like he was entering a place he wasn't sure he was allowed to exist in anymore. In a way, he wasn't. This house wasn't a backdrop now. It wasn't a stage. It wasn't a family asset. It was mine. He glanced around the living room, the open kitchen, the shelves I'd built with my own hands. His eyes lingered on details he'd never noticed before, because he'd never looked at this place without a lens between him and reality. We sat across from each other. The silence stretched, uncomfortable but honest. No background music, no audience. Finally, he spoke. "Brianna and I split up." I waited. 2 days after we got to Bali, he continued, voice tight. "Turns out, she didn't really want to get married. She wanted the wedding." I nodded slowly. There it was, the crash, the moment the performance finally ran out of script. "I'm sorry," he said suddenly. The word hung in the air, fragile. "Not just for that," he added quickly, like he was afraid I'd stop listening. "For the house, for the invites, for acting like it was mine, for not asking, for making you look like the bad guy when you said no." He swallowed. "For making you invisible." That one landed. I didn't rush to forgive him. I didn't say it's okay because it hadn't been. "Why now?" I asked. He gave a sad, crooked smile. "Because when everything fell apart, I realized I had nowhere safe to land. And the only person who ever gave me a real place to land, I treated like furniture." We talked for over an hour. About childhood, about how he felt pressure to be perfect, visible, admired, about how I felt pressure to disappear so no one would accuse me of wanting too much. At one point, he looked up at me and asked, almost afraid of the answer, "Do you think we could start over?" I took a breath. "I'm not the same person anymore," I said. "I'm not the one who stays quiet to keep the peace." He nodded. "I don't want you to be." That surprised me, so I nodded back. "Then, we can try." Not a reset, not forgiveness on credit. A beginning with conditions. When he left, it wasn't dramatic. Just a quiet hug, a whispered, "Thank you." I closed the door and sat on the couch. Benson jumped up beside me and let out a deep, satisfied sigh, like he approved of the emotional paperwork being filed. The house was still mine, and that mattered. Fall came fast. The air sharpened. The waves calmed. Tourists thinned out, and locals pulled out sweaters like it was a competition. Mason and I texted occasionally. Nothing heavy, nothing performative. He was in therapy now. Said he wanted to unlearn the version of family he thought was normal. That sentence alone was more growth than I'd ever expected. The rest of my family learned something too. They stopped assuming. They still tried sometimes. Subtle jabs and group chats. Mom, it's a shame the beach house isn't for family anymore. Dad, some people forget who raised them. I didn't respond, because I finally understood something important. I wasn't responsible for their entitlement. They didn't get to rewrite the past. They didn't get to claim my peace. The house was never theirs. It was mine when I painted crooked window frames at midnight. Mine when I scraped together deposits sleeping on a futon. Mine when I learned wiring from YouTube tutorials and pure stubbornness. And now it was mine in every sense. Not just property, but proof. Proof that boundaries can be built. That peace can be earned. That silence, when chosen, is powerful. A week before Thanksgiving, I got one last message from Dad. Mom's planning dinner. She asked if you'd come. I stared at it for a long time. Then I replied with one sentence. Tell her thanks, but I'll be hosting my own dinner this year. 2 days later, I posted a photo. A table set for 8. Close friends. 2 neighbors. 1 former renter who was back in town. In the center, a handwritten card. Welcome to the home that built itself. Brick by brick, boundary by boundary. No one in my family messaged me after that. No guilt, no outrage, no correction. For once, they understood. I wasn't punishing them. I was done letting them take. The waves kept rolling. The sun kept rising. And the porch lights stayed on. Not for the past, but for the future I built myself. Benson let out a sleepy bark beside me. I sipped my coffee, smiled, and whispered to no one in particular. Guess who owns the beach now?